Today on the Elevation Nation podcast, we have two guys who went to college together, graduated, and joined the real world. They got a corporate job, but could never get away from that entrepreneurial bug. So, what did they do? They started a company. Sound familiar, Elevation Nation? We are so grateful to have Dean Sisun and Jake Benzaquen join the podcast. They are two young adults who are absolutely crushing it in the real world as they navigate the startup world with their company, Profit Exchange. I'll let them break down what Profit is all about. I'm sure they got plenty to tell us about it. But first, guys, welcome to the Elevation Nation podcast. We are pumped to have you on.
Thank you, Parker. I am very appreciative that you pronounced my last name correctly, so I'll start off by saying that. But yeah, I'm excited to do this.
I mean, all those years at camp, Dean, I feel like at some point you would have told me off. I was afraid that I was going to get Jake's last name wrong.
If you want me I was going to say. You nailed it.
Guys, do we have to do any disclaimers at the beginning of this show? Right? I mean, we are talking about a pretty unique, interesting, hot topic that I think hopefully in the next few years is going to be legal everywhere. But any disclaimers that we need to put out there to Elevation Nation before we dive into what you guys do? I'm just making sure we cover our legal bounce here. We don't get sued by you guys down the road or the government's coming after us.
Bet responsibly.
Bet responsibly. Exactly. We'll get into that in a minute. But hyped you both are with us today. Thank you guys for giving us the time. I know Elevation Nation is really going to appreciate your story and the advice that you have for all of them as you kind of conquer the real world here. So to start off, we would love to hear a quick elevator pitch of who you both are for Elevation Nation. Jake, you want to start us off here, man?
Sure thing. Hey, everyone. My name's Jake. I co-founded Profit here with Dean about 3 years ago at this point. Went to school at Vanderbilt University. Was in the real world for about 12 months. Prior to founding Profit, was working a little bit on the side when I was employed. Huge sports fan. Just relocated from Austin to New Jersey up here. I'm a big Giants fan. I just watched them get slaughtered by the Rams last weekend. First game I've ever left at halftime. Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you guys for having us.
I heard you guys all booed the quarterback. Is that right?
That I was actually saying that it was very cathartic to be able to boo my team in person for the first time in 5 years. So that was the small victory of the excursion to MetLife.
That's classic. What about you, Dean?
Man, that's a low. My background is has a lot of overlap with Jake. So graduated from Vanderbilt, met Jake there. We're the same age. Right out of Vandy, I went into investment banking. I was in the real world. I made it a little longer than Jake. I made it 15 months. I learned a lot, but I hated it. We were working on Profit on the side basically the entire time I was there. And now, we've been working on this 3 years, one of the co-founders, and we will be launching a peer-to-peer sports betting exchange very soon in the state of New Jersey, with Indiana soon to follow.
Hell yeah. And we're going to get into all your guys' story, what Profit is and whatnot. But I want to first break down how we're going to structure the conversation. Elevation Nation knows how this goes. So Sam and I believe the concept of mental fortitude is the thing that we think young adults need to conquer the real world. And Sam and I believe mental fortitude is broken down into 3 parts: self-awareness, having a vision, and holding yourself accountable to reach that vision. So we're going to ask you guys a bunch of questions about self-awareness, vision, accountability, all tying it back to Profit. But let's just dive right into self-awareness. We're curious. I know Sam's curious because he's never met you guys. How did you guys meet? Was it just like at Vanderbilt day one? Did you guys meet before high school? College?
I think it was day one. All the Northeasterners really like to figure out who each other are on day one. And Jake had mutual friends of mine. I had mutual friends of his, and we linked up on day one. And I think we found out pretty quickly that we were both, I'll call it sports betting enthusiasts at the time.
And so, guys, you obviously didn't major in sports betting. I don't even know if you can. I don't think you majored in entrepreneurship. you guys majored in economics and corporate strategy, right? So what was the plan upon graduation, right? All your friends are getting jobs. You guys got jobs. Was it like, all right, here we go. Let's start this 40, 50-year grind? Or was there always this in the back of your head, like, something else is going to happen here? I don't know what it is yet, but it's going to happen.
At least speaking for myself, I did not have that in the back of my head. I was kind of groomed by my parents to figure out something stable. That's why I went into investment banking. I didn't really know that I wanted to do it. I think it was very telling that I bombed most of my investment banking interviews. I almost like backdoored into a very small investment bank. I like to say it was the best mistake I ever made, but no, I had no idea. I thought I would be working in finance for the rest of my life, but here we are.
Yeah, I have, I guess, a similar sentiment on that. When I originally started my job, I think is when I knew that I wasn't cut out for it. I think I learned very quickly that the firm that I was recruited to, quite frankly, the only job I got, and I just kind of took it and ran with it. But I kind of walked in day one and was promised to be on, the cutting edge of fintech and, doing design practices and product management. And none of that was the case. So once I quickly learned that that would not be at the forefront of my career for at least the next 12 to 18 months, I started trying to figure out, what else can I do to keep myself entertained on a daily basis.
So there was never like you guys in, I don't know, the fraternity house, maybe at a bar, whatever, talking about an idea like like one day we'll start a business together or a company and just whatever. It was kind of after the fact.
I think like towards the end of senior year, I brought something up to a couple of my friends about this. One of them being Jake, and very shortly after, and it was the idea of a peer-to-peer betting exchange, a bit of a spin-off of that, but very shortly after we graduated, I was at my desk for a month, and Jake pinged me over Facebook Messenger saying, "Yo, I'm learning about options at my job right now. We totally have to do this."
Huh.
And I never really thought it would be anything. I think Jake was, and I'll let Jake speak for himself here, but a little frustrated at his job and just wanted to try something different. And took me a while to fully buy in, but I think by about December I was fully bought in trying to make this work. And that was the genesis of it.
Yeah, I don't remember any specific, let's start a business conversation that took place. As Dean said, a lot of frustration kind of allowed me to stumble into what I thought was an emerging market here, and one that, already had telltale signs of how it would form overseas in the UK. So just prodding along, trying to figure out best foot forward, kind of what are people doing, where are regulations going, all of that stuff was just all stumbled in upon it. I don't think there was any, desire or a specific plan, to be honest.
So you guys are sitting there, you're working your job. Jake, you said you didn't like your job. What, you were in consulting in some capacity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Dean, you're sitting in investment banking. I don't know if you knew what you were doing, you liked what you were doing, whatever, but you stumble upon this idea. And Jake, you Facebook message him, Dean, and you're
Work
like,
laptop.
What'd you say?
I was on my work laptop.
Classic.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, what was it like that the in between from when you guys first had that ping back and forth to when you quit your job? Like you quit your job to start a company that who knows where that's going to go?
Jake alluded to, is a lot of exploring just regulatory items, legality, because at the time, for everyone not familiar with sports betting, we started exploring this August 2017. PASPA was repealed in May 2018, which essentially made sports betting legal up to the states. So federally, it wasn't illegal anymore. Every state had its own right to legalize sports betting. So we were exploring this and getting a lot of opinions like, good luck to these two idiots who are 22 years old and fresh out of college trying to start a sports betting company. They have no idea what they're getting into. So it started out like that. That was for the first, I'll say, 5 months or so. that led us, so we explored the U.S. landscape for a while. Then that led us over to exploring the U.K. An attorney who we met who was kind to us and took an interest in us said, you should check out the UK, what the market's all about. We found out it's been legal there 60 years. We found out it was miles more mature than the US. And we said, hey, you know what if we got licensed there and maybe proved out our concept out there and then brought it back here? Would that work? And that's really when the ball started to get rolling.
It's pretty awesome that you guys had the self-awareness of really what you wanted to get out of your lives, your professional careers, to make that big jump. And then also, self-awareness is obviously knowing who you are, but I think there's a part of self-awareness that's understanding your surroundings and society and the situation in the times that you're in that impacts who you are, and being able to recognize what's going on globally outside of the bubble of the Northeast that you guys grew up in, of like, wow, we could go learn somewhere else. I think that's hard for a lot of people, right? Like some people study abroad. Parker and I went to Spain, and you can call that like immersing yourself in a culture, sure, but like
still a bubble.
Not going
I feel like out there.
It's still a bubble,
yeah,
and
bubble.
like it's not anything like when we went to Asia for a month, right? Like throwing yourself in other situations, and especially globally, I think really teaches you a lot about yourself. So I'm curious, what did you guys learn while you were exploring the UK? I mean, yeah, they speak English, but come on, there's some different tidbits there that I'm sure took a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I can give you the whole pitch that I usually give when it surrounds what we learned as a company, but that's no fun yet. I'll get into that later. But honestly, the biggest thing that I learned is, I guess culturally, most Americans think that America is the only place in the world. And I really felt that hard when we were fundraising from the UK. And our whole plan was, listen, we're not going to spin our wheels here in the United States offering a free-to-play platform because it's impossible to get anything off. There's a massive chicken and the egg issue. Quick background, you need millions of dollars in a casino partnership in order to be a sports betting operator in the United States. That is really, really hard to do. And you're not going to do that by operating a free-to-play platform in the U.S. There's not one company who has been able to do that just by operating a free-to-play platform in the U.S. So when we're pitching to people that we're in the UK, we're taking real people's money, real people are using the platform, it's almost like a light switch went off in people's heads saying, or I guess went down in people's heads saying, oh, they're in the UK, who cares? Like, why would I invest money into a UK company? Why would I care?
So you're calling back home.
It was just,
you were calling people in America. You weren't having conversations with anybody in Europe? Or were there conversations with people in Europe?
We were, but the problem in Europe is they're not as, or I should say they're more risk averse. So in Europe, they want to see more numbers. They don't write as big of check sizes. I mean, if you look at the numbers in the United States, we're kicking ass when it comes to the amount of unicorns that we have here, and it's because I think investors here are willing to take a bigger risk. I mean, it's not even close. We have a few hundred, and the next up has, I think, 20. And none of those countries are in Europe, so that's why we weren't contacting Europe as much. But in the United States, everyone was like, "Oh, why aren't you in America?" Well, there's an entire rest of the world that we can go into and prove out this concept, and it was very, very frustrating. That's what I learned.
Yeah, I think to go off that, just the conservative nature of Europeans in many different regards, whether it be to writing checks, to valuing, to just everyday lifestyle. And how they think about things. So I think it was able to, as you guys were saying earlier, like actually immerse ourselves into a culture and be able to understand how people think and what they do, and that obviously translated to our product offering. Americans are definitely very balls to the wall, hence the 100+ unicorns that we have, and that goes from the founder side to the VCs that are right at the check side to all of that. I also think people are very much self-absorbed, rightfully so, a lot of the time with what they are doing at the time and how you can help them. For instance, we were having conversations and went out to a conference in Japan, which we never should have done realistically. There was no way we were ever operating in Japan, let alone communicating what we did. They didn't have legal sports betting, so we were trying to explain our niche offering of sports betting through a translator to someone that didn't even know what sports betting was. So, and a lot of that came from just, people having potential interest in partnerships with, their companies or whatever they're doing that necessarily didn't align with us. A lot of the stuff we get asked is, like, how can we help you on a daily basis? And a lot of that is people looking for B2B partnerships and B2B opportunities to be able to work together. And as an exchange and a consumer-focused betting product, it's really hard to work with others. So I think we found a lot of conversations that, people were interested in how can, you help us. And, sometimes we're willing to and get creative, but that's kind of just my takeaway from, I guess, our time there.
What did your family and your friends think when you were like, you know what, we're quitting our jobs, we're moving to Europe to start a sports gambling company? Like, what was that thought from everyone else?
How about my poor Jewish mother, like, just who had to get this news in stride?
I can't imagine. Like,
her,
you guys had this idea in your head. Obviously, you're putting together a proof of concept overseas and whatnot, and like your parents or your family, your friend, they're probably like, "What? Are you guys crazy?"
Yeah, I definitely had to prime both my parents separately that I wanted to start a gambling company and move to London and quit my investment banking job. Just picture like how that sounds to a parent. They were.
I'm picturing my mom and Parker's mom when we told them we were starting a podcast and not quitting our jobs in their faces. So I'm like multiplying that by 100. I feel like that might be accurate.
Well, my mom didn't understand what a podcast was. I can't imagine what your parents thought. What you guys were doing.
Yeah. My mom still doesn't fully understand what we do, if that makes you feel any better.
Okay. All right.
Same. That makes two of our moms. So I actually got caught doing that. I wasn't even able to break the news to her. One time I had a call with her like, hey, I don't like investment banking. I want to work for a startup. And she flipped out. She was like, you want to make no money? What the hell's wrong with you? And I was like, okay, that didn't go over very well. So she was still getting my mail at the time, and it was coming from my bank. She was like, do you want me to open this? I was like, yeah, sure, open it. And she was like, the top line was like this massive charge from an international call. And my mom was like, what is that? And I said, all right, sit down. I've got something to tell you. And at the time we were talking to UK attorneys on the phone. I was an idiot. I was dialing in. I was getting charged for this stuff. And that's when I told her, like, this is what I'm exploring. This is what I'm doing. And she basically said, are you out of your mind? And I said, let me just send you everything we've got. And I sent her all of our materials we put together. And she said, this looks amazing. Like, I don't fully understand it, but, pursue it. See what you can do. That was about 9 or 10 months before I quit my job and fully pursued this. But great question, Parker. It was frightening is the way I'd put it.
So I think, Jake, do you have anything to add on that? Okay.
No, honestly, my parents have been extremely supportive. The comment off my mom not knowing what we do is that she made a comment to my friend last weekend asking, can you explain it to me, even though I've explained it to her 40 times what we do. But no, my parents have been nothing but supportive, which is great. My dad was an entrepreneur, started his own business, so there was no selling him there on anything. My mom, definitely typical Jewish mother, freaked out a little bit, but she got around to it. I still think our friends think we're crazy, to be honest. I still don't think they understand fully like how balls deep we are in it at this point, if that's okay for me to say here, I guess.
Anything goes, Jake.
Okay.
I love this transition because this goes perfectly into the next section of the podcast, which is vision. Like, our parents have this vision for how their kid is going to grow up and the life that they're going to live. And I honestly believe oftentimes your parents' vision is not going to be what the kid wants, right? What we want. I mean, yeah, they want you to live a happy, successful, healthy life. Maybe like for my parents, they're like, oh, he's going to become a lawyer one day or a dentist or whatnot. and you find your way, you get older, and you're like, wait, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm going to quit my job and make my own vision become a reality. What is the vision for profit for you guys? And how has that changed over time?
It's definitely changed over time, I'll tell you that. We want to be I like to call it a sports betting company that's completely across the spectrum. So you have, excuse me, you have daily fantasy sports, you have sports books, and there's nothing out there right now, but there are sports betting exchanges across the world. Going back to Americans think America is the only place in the world. Those are the three pillars of, I guess, consumer-facing sports betting, right? And initially, our vision was we're going to create a secondary marketplace for sports bets. For example, you place a bet on DraftKings, you sell it on profit. We sell to a company for whatever the price is. We're millionaires, and we're 29 in the Bahamas, and that's it. That was, I guess, initially the dream. But now what we're seeing is there's an opportunity for us to really come in and make a splash. The more I learn about, and the more we learn about just the history of Betfair, which is the biggest betting exchange in the world, back 20 years ago when they did the same thing. An exchange has a serious fit in the market, and it can dominate if it's well executed. And it's very hard to catch because you have a moat. Not an IP moat, not a typical moat you'd think of, but a liquidity moat. You have a lot of people betting on your platform. Prices tighten. No one wants to go anywhere else. They get the best price out there. Similar to Amazon. But so once we have that, then the dream is to open up a sports book side by side with our exchange, Paddy Power Betfair. They did the same exact thing, but they merged. Betfair first did that, and then they merged with Paddy Power. And what's unique to America is daily fantasy sports, largely because NFL fits so well with it, and NBA fits pretty well with it too. And we want to either buy a daily fantasy sports company or open one ourselves, and we'll be fully across that consumer-facing sports betting spectrum. That's the vision. Now, will we succeed? I have no idea. It will be fully a play-it-by-ear scenario where maybe we're not outperforming our KPIs and we want to sell. Maybe there are certain licensing restrictions that come about in the future. I don't know. There's so much just unforeseen possibilities with sports betting. But that's, in a perfect world, that's what we'll be.
I mean, as your vision changes. Sorry, I got a little feedback. As your vision changes, I bet America's vision for sports gambling and betting is going to change too, and that's going to cause a lot of people to change the way they see their business and the industry itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point. And Dean, I appreciate you walking us through the vision for profit. I want to also ask both of you quickly, what about your vision for your lives? Right? Parker hinted at this, that our parents have this vision for us, right, as nice Jewish boys. I think, Parker, you missed the word that I was thinking of, but I think most of our parents just want us to be comfortable, right? They've seen the struggles that a lot of them have gone through, and they just want us to be comfortable and safe and secure. Dean, to your point of what your mom said, she's like, why would you leave and go to a startup to make no money, right? What about your guys' vision for yourselves, for your life? What do you want to feel or achieve as human beings?
I mean, not something I was prepared to answer coming on today, probably. I think you defined it best by saying comfortability. And that's all relative. Like, there's many different ways you can take that. And I think I don't want to sound cheesy here, but relating it back to self-awareness in terms of, what makes you comfortable on a day-to-day basis. For some people, that's money. For some people, it's, living by, somewhere that has an ocean breeze. So really, at the end of the day, it's, being comfortable with, your living situation, your means, your happiness, your job, whatever, you define all of that stuff as. We take it day by day, week by week here in the startup world. So looking ahead is quite difficult and often problematic at times. So trying to stay focused on the short term, but that's the best I can pitch back to you guys.
Yeah, that's honestly a great answer. I can't see 3 weeks into the future. Honestly, it's just like, I guess, a byproduct of running your own company for 3 years now, and you have no idea what's going to come up. But uh, if we become massive one day, if we SPAC or IPO or whatever, like, I don't know what my position will look like, but I'm struggling to see ourselves operating, and I guess it's just hard for me to see right now because we're 13 employees, but I'm struggling to see ourselves operating just a multi-thousand employee public company like DraftKings. It's just crazy to think about. But I will say, like, since I've been doing this, I definitely like the feeling of feeling like I have too much going on and almost feeling like I'm underwater. I don't know what it is. I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's just uniquely challenging, and been doing it for 3 years now. So maybe it's just kind of a byproduct of my day to day over these past couple of years. But I kind of like not knowing where I'm going to end up in a weird, sick, twisted way.
No, that honestly really resonates with me too, Dean. And I think vision can kind of be twofold, right? You have the vision for actual achievements and milestones and things that you're going to get done. But I think you both kind of tied it to, well, what's the feeling that I like? Either being comfortable and maybe this is why you guys are amazing partners, right? Jake wants to be comfortable and Dean wants to be drowning, right? And you balance each other out. And I kind of feel that same way. I can't sit still. Like it actually causes me more anxiety to relax than it does to do something, which is probably messed up. And I probably need to see someone about that. But like, that's just how I feel, right? And so now that you figured out at a young age, this feeling like drives me, this brings me energy, this makes me want to wake up in the morning. To your point, who knows what vision achievements you're going to have happen down the line, but it's like, I need to push further every single day, one day at a time, to keep that feeling and keep that fire going in my gut. And I think that takes some serious self-awareness and also some vision to know, like, that feeling I want to keep for as long as I can and as long as it feels good for me. So I appreciate you both opening up a bit. I don't know if Parker told you we get deep on this thing. So sorry if that made you guys uncomfortable, but this is what we do every week. We love it. And I think it's important to reflect on like what truly brings you joy in life. Cause like you guys are way busier than me and Parker and you take every day, day by day, but it's like, take a step back and look at your life. And it's like, wow, what do I actually want right now? You know?
I hear you. Bring it on in terms of the deepness.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's see how deep we can go here.
I'm not like thinking.
Not Parker's thinking.
I'm like, all right. The way I think about this too, with entrepreneurship in general, like this is Sam and my quote unquote second company that we've started since we've graduated. And whenever we talk with people about what we're doing with Elevation Nation and what we did with our previous venture, people are like, "Oh, how is it? Is it amazing? It looks great." Like entrepreneurship seems sexy on the outside, right? Like everyone who's not an entrepreneur is like, "Wow, I want to be an entrepreneur," or they're like, "Dang, like that guy looks like he's starting his own company, doing his own thing." What are you, when someone asks you guys, "How are you doing?" Like, how are you framing that?
That's another. You're on fire with the great questions. Because recently, someone texted me. It seems like you guys are killing it. There's a ton of press coming out about you and LinkedIn posts and whatever. And it's so hard to take a step back because Jake and I are just so in the weeds. And I think just naturally starting your own business, you will be skeptical and you'll be negative. So it feels like we're not moving as quickly as we want. But in reality, I look at where we were a year or two ago and I'm like, holy shit, like we have done a lot, which is pretty crazy to think about. So that's probably how I'd best describe my feeling here, is that you never feel like you're doing enough. You never feel like you're moving fast enough. And then there are people reaching out to you, congratulating you on the success that you have. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not nowhere near where we need to be yet. So.
Yeah, my go-to is always, we got a long way to go. And it's true, to be honest. I mean, Dean's right. Just reflecting back of where we were a year ago, like, we've made great progress, but I always am having my foot on the gas, want to move faster, have never moved as fast as I want to, and maybe that's a flaw, maybe it's a good thing in terms of how we're driving productivity or the business on a daily basis. But no, it's like so in the weeds. You take a step back and you're like, okay, well, we are doing well. We're making a name for ourselves. People are congratulating us, like, despite us not having hit XYZ features or milestones or product releases or whatever you want to hold yourself to. If you do take a step back and kind of look at the bigger picture, it's probably something we should do more, to be honest. But no, that's my go-to is a long way to go, which is true.
Fair enough. I feel like Sam and Sam is like, oh my God. Sometimes he's like, dude, I don't know what we're doing. Like, what is this podcast? Like, what? I'm like, dude, take a step back and just acknowledge, like, we're releasing our 100th episode next month. You guys are going to be 99. Like, that's a win within itself. It's about the small wins, right? On the way to that big, extravagant, vision that you paint for yourself. You have to at least take a step back and acknowledge those, right? Like, along the way, I see you guys posting all the time. You're coming back to New Jersey. You got headquarters. You're launching the deal with one of your partners. Like, those are big wins or small wins, maybe big wins, whatever it is. But you got to take a step back sometime and just acknowledge it. Grab a beer and be like, yo, we did this. And then the next day you wake up and like, what's next? And you stack those little wins on top of each other, and next thing you know, you look down and you're pretty high up.
That means you've been working 2 jobs for almost 2 years, 99 episodes. You do 1 a week. How's that going? That sounds tough.
So we actually do 2 episodes a week. We do 1 interview with people we've met through Instagram, people, who have connected with us through friends, family, whatever. And then another episode is just Sam and I shooting the shit about what's on our mind that week, kind of like therapy, essentially. Like, what's going on at the job, Sam? Like, why is, what's living with your girlfriend? Like, I just moved in with my girlfriend. Like, that's a whole different world, So, yeah, man, you make time for it, though. You make time.
Yeah. Good for you. Like you said, take a step back. Look at what you've achieved. It's hard. I hear you.
And speaking of achievement, right? We talked a little bit here about the vision you guys have in terms of accomplishments, the vision or the feeling that you want to maintain over the next few years. But let's go into accountability and how you're going to hold yourself to, for Dean, for you, feeling that fire and drowning and, pushing forward. And Jake, for you, I don't want to keep saying comfortable because, Jake, I know that's probably not what you meant. You're not going to be ever comfortable in a startup, but I think maybe you have a different feeling that you want to maintain while running the startup, perhaps. How are you both holding yourselves accountable, right? You guys are really good friends. I love Parker to death. He calls me out on my bullshit all the time, right? How are you guys kind of maintaining your friendship, holding yourself accountable to your goals, and pushing forward each and every day? It's impressive.
I don't think there's necessarily ever been a problem that we've had from a friendship, business relationship. I think we've been able to keep those two things separate, which has obviously worked very well. In terms of accountability, I think we're very good at holding ourselves each accountable on our own, which I think has helped, us be able to maintain our friendship and, still go out on the weekends or hang out together and whatnot. Is not, going back and forth on accountability all week to then seeing them on the weekend, that starts to become a lot. And, there might be some residual stuff from conversations in the week, but Dean and I have always been good at holding ourselves individually accountable. In terms of what I foresee or what sorry, got some feedback there. But in terms of what I see or try and do on a daily basis to keep myself accountable, I think it's just moving at a consistent pace. More of a feeling than anything like metric driven or quantitative. Just, making sure that I'm busy from at least the hours of 9 to 5. And if not, then, what am I doing kind of after work hours or in the morning? Am I at least staying up to date with the industry? things of that nature, just having conversations, even stuff like this. Like, this is productive. This is moving foot forward. This is, keeping pace. We obviously, have a lot of work going on the side, but doing stuff like this is great too. So I think it's more internal than anything. And I think Dean and I both have a really good clock internally in terms of how we deal with accountability and the pace that we're moving at, which has, allowed us to stay friends as well.
Yeah, completely agree with that. We're definitely not. First of all, going back to people thinking we're insane for doing this, people think including our parents, think we're absolutely insane for. We lived together for 3 years, worked together every day, went out together all the time. People thought that was pretty insane. So I think it's taking a step back. I don't think it's impressive or anything, but maybe sometimes you take a step back and like, wow, maybe that is kind of impressive that we were able to manage to keep that all together. I think what definitely helps us is, like Jake said, we hold ourselves accountable very well. I think going back to the theme of it never feels like we're getting enough done, I think it ties into us holding ourselves accountable well. And also, we're not confrontational people with each other. Like, if one of us is not moving quickly enough, it'll almost be like that person will beat the other to the punch and say, this is the update with what's going on. This is why we haven't done this yet. This is where we're at. This is when it's going to happen. This is the new timeline. So I think it's being a combination of just understanding what's going on and being very proactive. In terms of your final question, Sam, I definitely need to work on work-life balance. Like, I've had a toothache for 2 weeks, and I really need to go to the fucking dentist.
Avoid the dentist, Dean. Avoid the dentist. The dentist is the worst place in the world, man.
Yeah, but I got a crown about a month or two ago. That was a whole thing that I won't be talking about. But now I have a toothache in that same side, and I think it might be a root canal. So I just need to sit down and just find a dentist here with our new health insurance or dental insurance plan that I had set up for us along with Insperity, our provider, which was a whole thing I had to learn about starting a company, giving out benefits. So I definitely need to work on that. Probably after this, I'm going to book a dentist appointment. That reminds me.
Oh, how could you do that? The dentist is the worst place in the world. It's funny when you're younger, like you enjoy the dentist, and you get older, and you're like, damn, this place sucks. But to this point on accountability, I think, something that Sam and I have learned too, and, I acknowledge is like, we obviously have like a Kanban board, a Trello, if you guys know what that is, like, moving things along, getting things like done. And, obviously that's the tangible thing that holds us accountable when it comes to the business. But the intangible thing is just trust, right? And there are so many things that Sam and I do and have to do, which is rooted in trust. I edit the podcast. Sam trusts me that it's going to be done on this day, on Tuesday, that we're going to release it on Sam's side. Trust that he's going to be setting up all this stuff and, all the operations behind what we're doing. Like, trust is like not the thing that you can just pick up and show around, but it's the most critical thing, I think, when starting a business when it comes to accountability.
When we initially started this, it took us a while to really figure out our own lanes and what we were doing. We were both doing everything for, I'd probably say, almost 2 years, Jake. It was until we got our first angel investor, and he came in. He runs his own company. They're worth $50 million, and he kind of came in and coached us and said, you guys can't be taking every call together. You can't be doing everything together. Like, you need to split up and divide and conquer. And it wasn't until that point that we always trusted each other, right? But, we were definitely micromanaging each other without realizing it. And it was at that point that, Jake handled more of the product and I handled more of the business side. And now we just kind of run in our lanes and we get a lot more done. And we trust each other to get this stuff done. Like, I used to be in the project management tool that we use all the time, answering questions on the engineers. And I haven't been in that in about 2 years. Jake handles all of that. And, back to budgeting and fundraising, Jake hasn't touched that in 2 years. That's just my responsibility now. So totally hear you on all of what you said, and it took us a while to figure it out, but
it's hard because you both are
everything
in
else
it equally, and you like love the idea and the company equally, and it's like, dang, like what you feel like. Oh, I mean, at first, I mean, this is something Sam and I dealt with totally. It's like we wanted to be on everything. We wanted to be like, because we were like, oh wait, like I want my say, I want to have an input there. What about you for Jake? Jake, what about you? Curious what you think about that.
I mean, I think, Dean hammered it home. It's funny when people ask us that question, like, do you guys work on the same stuff? And we're like, no, we actually literally don't work on anything together. I mean, there's obviously some high level strategy stuff that we talk about and overlap in some areas, but from a day to day perspective, like I have no say or even look into what he's doing and vice versa. And I mean, I think it goes back to productivity. I think it was definitely hard for us at first in figuring out because we were also helping each other out in a lot of different items. So, and then just taking full ownership on your own over something that you've never done before, which for most, or at least for myself, not coming from a banking background, was most things. But I mean, it allows us to move way quicker, being able to handle the things that we're both better at individually. And then two, you just have double the manpower if you're not working on the same items. It's also definitely been interesting having employees. It's the first time in ever that either of us have managed anyone. It's been about 6 weeks now. I think we're pretty good at it. I am obviously biased and have no idea how it looks from the other side, but I think we learned how and know how much each other hate micromanaging and are both pretty laid back when it comes to it, as long as, you get your shit done, and we hired enough self-motivated people to do so. But it's been an interesting just look into, because you asked about how we split up our work, but how do we split up managing these people as well? So there's been a lot of new learnings over the past 6 weeks. But I guess this question was about trust originally. Yeah, I mean, nothing gets done without that, innate trust there.
Yeah, gotta trust the new employees.
Yeah, you're trusting people to handle your baby.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you didn't know them 8 weeks ago,
crazy.
2 months ago, not whatever it is. You're trusting them with literally the thing that you've been putting your blood, sweat, and tears into.
It is kind of a crazy. Oh, sorry, Dean. I was just gonna say it's a crazy concept when you think about it, right? You guys have nursed this concept from nothing, an idea, to now something that's tangible. You're getting PR, and not to freak you guys out, but one small slip up from someone that goes rogue or someone who doesn't get their dental coverage because Dean messed up setting it up and they get pissed, right? There's just more pressure. It's amplified of everything you do now is under a microscope. You're leading a team. You got to keep everyone happy because I don't know, people are crazy. And I'll tell a quick story, I guess, why I just said that. I just moved to a new apartment building in DC. And we have an amenities room, right? Beautiful room. You can work from there. The other day, it gets absolutely trashed. A former employee came in with a baseball bat and destroyed the entire room because they were pissed and they got fired, right? So, obviously, people are crazy now. You have to be so careful with everything and everything you say and, the people that are under you because you never know how people can act and be disgruntled. I'm sure all your employees love you. I don't mean to scare you guys, but I just thought that story was funny.
I sure as hell hope so. That would suck. But
could you imagine? Can you imagine being a fly on the wall for that entire thing? That'd be hilarious. Just listen, I'm sorry that the person got fired, but it would be very funny to watch that go down with a baseball bat. Just saying.
It sounds like an episode of Curb or
yeah, right,
or something like that.
It's I'm working. I'm on a meeting right now. You turn around, this guy
Larry David sitting in the office, and there's someone with a baseball bat slamming against the wall and invades him. It just sounds like an episode of Curb.
Classic.
And he'd come home and no one would believe him. But anyway, what I was going to add on is, on this having employees topic, forget about us adjusting to having them and learning how to delegate. That's a whole different topic in and of itself. But just people asking me about life insurance, I'm like, oh my God, real world shit right now is, I'm being thrown. I'm having stuff thrown at me. So thinking about, the company that we're building, that, the money we raise is going towards contributing to people's families. These are just really real world things that are such a huge adjustment to us that started with just Jake and I going into our own lanes, and now we are trusting our ability to run a company to support people's lives, right? It sounds a little cheesy, but it's just so true when you step back and think about it. So that's been quite an adjustment.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, we pitched people, some of which are our friends that we've known well, and some of which are complete strangers, to stop what they're doing at their nice, cushy corporate job and leave and come take less money and more upside to come work for us two, who, we're just two guys on a camera to them on Zoom. They're like, I've never even heard of Profit Exchange at this point. So, I mean, Dean deals with more of the life insurance, real world shit. I don't touch any of that. But I mean, it's definitely was stressful at points, being like, okay, well, I'm asking all these people to, put their families and their own personal well-being in our hands, which is a lot to handle at certain times, especially when you're, either not moving as quickly as you want to, or frustrated with various areas of the business, or even just having a bad day and looking at things and saying like, okay, well, this isn't going to happen this week or next. And, what does that mean for X, Y, and Z? What does that mean for my employees? You really can start diving in, and that's definitely not the way to think about it and go about it on a daily basis, but it can definitely happen.
It's incredible. I mean, there's just so much. There's so many things that I'm sure. I mean, you guys are millions light years away or ahead of where Sam and I are now. But hearing you guys walk through that is so interesting. I think what's also really interesting is we just talked through mental fortitude. You guys have mental fortitude, no doubt in my mind. It's like crazy to think about. Sam and I have interviewed a ton of people. I've had conversations about mental fortitude with people beyond the podcast, and like what you guys are doing right now. I mean, to quit your job, to start a company, to move to another country, to live there, come back, hire employees, raise money from investors. That takes a whole lot of mental fortitude, and it's all grounded in knowing who you are, what you freaking want, and holding yourself accountable. So before we get to the last question of the podcast, I got some fastballs for you guys. So I guess we got 3 questions, nice and fast. What was the best food that you guys had over in Europe that you've never had before?
Well, English food sucks, but like blood. God, they had some horrible food. But I'll tell you the best. Maybe not that I ever.
Or the most
had
interesting thing that you had.
I can go bacon, egg, and cheese naan. English food sucks.
A good one.
English food sucks, but the Indian food in England is fucking unreal.
What? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it speaks for itself.
Yeah. So Jake and I were awfully poor in London. I mean, we were living on shoestring salaries and on credit for a while. So, and also on the 2019 Raptors. Tons of value on that every game. I was going to say Dishoom, Jake. That was my knee-jerk reaction. It was like the only nice, quality, really good restaurant we really went to. Indian food. I had never had that high-quality Indian food in my life, and I still have not been able to find it.
Even in New York City?
US. Even in New York City, yeah.
All right, I got another one for you guys. What's the best bet you guys have ever made? Maybe it was the 2019 Raptors. I don't know, future.
Well, I can think of the worst bet I ever made.
Okay.
I think that's a more proper question for people like us.
Fair enough.
You don't remember your wins. You remember your painful losses.
Are you sure? Because I have a friend who put a future on the Blues and won like $50,000 when they won the cup. He bet it on them when they were like the worst team in the NHL, and I can tell you he remembers that one.
Well, I mean, we've won $50,000 on a bet, and I couldn't even tell you who the 2 teams were in the parlay at this point. Like, it just the painful. the pain is very much a lot easier to remember. Very recently, I think Jake's answer will be the same. We had we can get into a whole topic of this, but there was a promotion on a sports book, and we took it, and we took a Vikings Titans parlay, money line underdog parlay. It was like 7.5, 8 to 1.
Week 2, I think, right after they both lost. Yeah,
we put a lot on it. It was a very, very large free bet. I won't say the number. And the Vikings were playing the Cardinals, down 2 with 3 seconds left. Greg Joseph misses a 37-yard field goal. I was on the floor in my apartment. It was just absolutely awful. And then right after that, the Titans came back. That was the first leg of the parlay, and we said, wow, now the Titans really need to lose. Otherwise, this is going to be awful. Titans come back from 2 touchdowns down in Seattle, win in overtime. I was absolutely beside myself. That guy, Greg Joseph, also missed an extra point in the game. So it would have been tied at that point if he had just hit the extra point. They were down a point, actually, not 2. And then he missed the 37-yard field goal. So, yeah. That's my answer for my best bet.
Not fans of Greg Joseph these days.
No Greg Joseph.
No.
For me, it was really early on. I remember this very vividly. I put like $25 on like the Warriors to win the championship and the Blackhawks to win the championship to pay like $500. And like I was it was like I think it was Game 7. The Warriors had already won. The Blackhawks were in their Game 7. And I put like $25 at like 100 to 1 of like Duncan Keith to score the first goal and to score the game-winning goal.
Wow.
And they won 1-0 in Game 7. So he scored the first, which ended up being the game winner as well. So I won that $500 parlay plus first goal scorer plus game winner. And to be honest, winning a $500 bet these days is great, but it doesn't get the juices flowing like it used to.
Yeah.
So that back in the day is by far and away my introduction to betting and how electric it truly can be.
Sam is sitting there like,
let me
what is going
restate
on?
the statement I said at the beginning. Bet responsibly, everybody.
Yeah,
Just want to throw that disclaimer back out, remind the folks out
Yes.
Bet within your means.
there. There you go.
Yeah.
Parker, you got one more question?
Yeah, I got
Another
one
fastball
more.
here?
All right. What's the best sporting event you guys have ever been to? Because, come on, everyone's got their top 3 at least. I've got my top 3 without a doubt, but I got one that is without a doubt the best sporting event I've ever been to. What do you guys got?
I've got one off the top of my head, and it wasn't a win, but it was Preds Game 7 in Nashville. Actually, Jake and I went.
Flew in for it.
They were playing the Jets, and they were down 2-0. PK Subban, top of the key, rips one into the net, and the crowd. I mean, I'd never heard a roar like that in my life. The crowd just went absolutely nuts. They lost 3-1, but that was one of the highlights. And then I was it's actually 2 Islanders games. I'm not an Islanders fan, but I was at the first game back in the Coliseum when they played the Blue Jackets. That was absolutely nuts. I've never heard a louder stadium. Second to the Islanders Game 6 this past year versus Lightning to force a Game 7. They were down 2-0, and they went to overtime and they won. That was absolutely electric. Those are all hockey.
And they
which
packed
isn't
the
my
house
favorite
for that,
sport.
like after a whole COVID season. Wait, are you guys
Oh my God,
Predators
yeah.
fans now? Because you lived in Nashville? Is that a thing?
Somewhat.
All right, that's cool. I
Yeah.
respect that.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake?
It's tough for me. Like you said, you have your 3 right off the bat. I don't, honestly. We're going to UFC 268 at the Garden next month,
Ooh.
and I'm super hyped about that. I watched Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane for any UFC fans out there in Houston, and it was just the most disappointing thing I've ever been to. The event itself was awesome. That fight was horrible, but like I'm now all in on UFC and going there live. Our friends were just at Wilder Fury, which looked unreal. But for me personally, it was the last full stadium game in England before COVID. I was at Man United, Man City at Old Trafford. United won 2-1. Was sitting right behind the goal that United scored both their goals on. They were very long odds. It was electric. And then after that, about a week later, we left London for good. So funny how things can change so quickly, but I mean, that was one of the best for sure.
That's awesome. I've never been to I feel like a soccer game in England is just next level compared to anything that we ever go to in America.
Yeah, maybe aside from Clemson or LSU.
Yeah,
Saturday
that's true.
night,
That's true.
But yes, for sure.
Sam,
Wild. I love it.
You want to finish us off?
Yeah, but I want to say my favorite game
Fair enough. I have to give mine too.
was not even a good game, but it was Ohio State men's basketball against Winthrop over winter break 4 years ago. Got to see my boy Joey Lane score his first college bucket, and there was no one in the stadium because it was winter break. And so I got to yell at Thad Matta to put in Joey, and I was so loud that he put him in garbage time, and he knocked down a three. So you're welcome, Joey, for your first bucket.
That's
Joey,
awesome.
That's epic.
Joey Lane, first podcast episode of the Elevation Nation podcast, which is great. Mine is without a doubt AFC Championship, Ravens, Patriots. The year the Ravens won the Super Bowl. We were a 4 seed. Patriots were the best team, well, the second best team in the league. Just took them down. Such an ass whooping, especially after the year that Cundiff missed that kick. We got a new kicker, the GOAT, Justin Tucker. Finished it off. Obviously, we won the Super Bowl here. Never forget that game.
We were going to bring up a Ravens
Of course.
game.
I mean, my
Obviously.
top
It must
three,
be
honestly, in my top three is the Ravens-Chiefs Sunday Night Football Week 2 this year. I was there, first game back after COVID. That game was absolutely electric. Insane.
We get it. You have season tickets. We get it.
Rob, who you know, he went to the most recent one versus the Colts.
Oh, my gosh.
And he said that was one of the best games he's ever been to. That looked insane.
When you got a guy like Lamar Jackson, dude's Hollywood, man. He's just putting on a show day in and day out.
Yeah.
All right, Sammy,
So,
let's
guys,
hear
Must be
it.
nice.
I want to ask you our final question. We ask everybody that comes on the Elevation Nation podcast this. It's a quick question with a quick answer, but it's very thought-provoking. So we've talked all about mental fortitude and how we think that's the missing piece that young adults need to conquer the real world. For myself and for Parker, that consists of self-awareness, vision, and accountability. But the cool part about mental fortitude is it can really mean anything to anybody, and it's their juice that they kind of use to help them push forward. So, Dean, we'll start with you. What does mental fortitude mean to you, man?
It's a good question. It's keeping myself in check, honestly. It's knowing my strengths and weaknesses better than anyone else does. So, in my opinion, I think about this a lot. If you know what you're good at and what you're bad at, it sounds so simple, right? But if you really know where your strengths, where your weaknesses are, you know where you have to hire, you know where you have to delegate, you know what you should take control of, what you should pass off. It really filters down to everything that you do. And it's, potato, keeping yourself in check and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. That's how I think of it.
I love it. That was beautiful. I don't think we've heard that one before, which is awesome. It's always fun when we get a unique perspective on mental fortitude. So, Jake, last one, man. Last question of the night. No pressure. But what does mental fortitude mean to you, man?
Yeah, I was hoping Dean would talk a little longer. I'm still getting my thoughts my thoughts together here. I think it's showing a balance of, and not to play off the strengths and weaknesses theme here, but it's being able to, at the appropriate times, be able to balance showing strength, but also vulnerability in a certain regard. You kind of have to be, innately, mentally just really strong or stupid to be doing what we're doing. Like every conversation, every day, you have to walk in, and if you don't look and feel and, illustrate and put in front of people that you believe what you're doing is going to work on a daily basis, no one else is going to. So I think you definitely have to be a level of stupid to be able to do that, because it's definitely not a for sure thing. But you have to walk around acting like it is to people externally, people internally from certain times. But people at the end of the day also understand that, you're the human being. And people look at Zuckerberg and are like, well, that guy's like, I can't relate to that guy at all, or do anything that he's doing because he just looks like such a robot. So if you take a step back, being able to be vulnerable and show that, you are someone who's, on the same playing field, you're just, doing the same thing as everyone else on a daily basis at certain times as well. I mean, I think that definitely shows authenticity, and that, you are mentally strong in many different areas, and being able to show that you're vulnerable in some makes you even stronger in others, if that even makes sense at this point.
Totally. I'm a big fan of Zuckerberg, by the way. But vulnerability, we talked about
meats.
that. What'd you say?
The video, I love the Smoke and Meats video.
Oh, I like the one of him like surfing. Have you seen that one? Like, it's classic.
God, yeah.
But yeah, vulnerability we talk about all the time. I really did love that answer, Jake. Guys, this was fun. We went an hour. I told you it'd be 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Sorry to take you away from all the other awesome things that you're doing. But I just want to say, you guys are doing incredible things. I've been following your journey since you started, I guess, Profit, 3 years ago, and it's just incredible to see. Dean, I know we go way, way back to 2.5, all the way at Indian Head Camp, sharing a bunk together. But this is incredible. Look at us now. How many years later, we're having a conversation on a podcast talking about our companies with our co-founders. So honestly, it's been an honor to have you guys, and just thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was fun.
Yeah, it was great.
I enjoyed that.
Appreciate you both. And everybody, don't forget, bet responsibly. Until next week, Elevation Nation. Peace. Yo, nice.